You are listening to and streaming a More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai Corte, and always a pleasure to welcome back Germar Reed. He is our regular data justice contributor. He's also a data science and analytics leader and founder of District Analyst LLC, always helping us to make it make sense when it comes to the world of data and justice. Welcome back to the show, Germar.
Thanks for having me, Dr. Nee.
Well, thank you for being here. So, talking about making it make sense, there was an article in The Guardian talking about stymied data center projects that are threatening this global AI revolution. For folks who are less familiar, data center planning proposals are facing all kinds of hurdles, from securing energy supply to high construction costs. But the 2,000-acre Prince William Digital Gateway site in the U.S. State of Virginia had another problem: its proximity to a Civil War battlefield. The Gateway project is now in doubt after a local court ruling halted the project and a key backer pulled out. And one of hundreds of large-scale data center projects around the world that are in various states of development. This is an issue that's not going anywhere. Germar, the Guardian's reporting that the data center projects, the actual physical guts of the AI boom, are getting stymied. Permits, power grid capacity, community pushback. Is this a real speed bump for AI or just a scary headline?
I think it's a speed bump in a good way. I mean, one of the things that as you see, we've been moving quickly to get these data centers up to start to use AI in our everyday lives. And I think that it's a good thing for us to pause and to ask the question, how does this affect those around us? How does this affect the folks that live in and around the areas that these data centers are being built? And to go through the proper procedure of actually, I live here in Washington, D.C., and if I wanted to add an additional building onto my property, the district they make me step through a bunch of hurdles. And while it may be frustrating when I'm trying to complete a build or to get something up that I want, I think that in some cases it's a good thing to make me step through the process to make sure that I'm not negatively affecting my neighbors, negatively affecting those that are paying taxes on the same street as I am, just because it's something that I want and I think that is good for me. So I think that the speed bump is something that's needed. I think it's a good idea. And I gladly hope that those folks that represent us in local, state, and federal government are taking the time to make sure that it's not negatively affecting those that live inside their districts.
Yeah, I mean, it's also worth noting that, these speed bumps, the slowing down of these AI data centers, construction of these AI data centers, that, it's not happening by itself. There are folks in community who are organizing. And I think that's a narrative that we just don't hear enough about. For a number of folks, they see these headlines and they think it's David and Goliath. They're like, the community has no chance. They're no match, to the money and the power and proximity to power that these tech companies have. But we're hearing in story after story, headline after headline, that community is fighting back, and they are slowing this train down, are they not?
They are. And I think, and again, I think it's a good thing. I think I'm not against technology. But I am for making sure that we make the right decision before just barreling ahead. And one thing about it, one thing that we've learned over the last couple of years is that, when decisions are made quickly and laws are changed quickly and rules are changed and manipulated quickly, and sometimes in the in the still of the night, we find out that there have been laws or names changed on buildings or institutions, and then we find ourselves in a difficult space trying to unwind some of these bad decisions. Absolutely not against the slowing down of incorporating technology into our daily lives, but I'm also not against incorporating that technology, but just doing it responsibly.
Now, Jamar, speaking of doing it responsibly, I mean, I've got to ask you, if it does slow down, who feels it first? Is it Silicon Valley's roadmap to riches, or is it neighborhoods that never wanted a power hungry data center next door in the first place?
I think it's equally felt. I mean, one thing is there's nothing like being comfortable in the space that you've chosen to make your home and your community, where your friends and family and those that you spend your time with around you are safe and they have the things that they need, but they also are in a space where they're not being harmed. And as far as the tech giants out there, one thing that we find out about those coming out of Silicon Valley or everywhere, as these companies pop up, they have the ability to solve problems. That's one thing that they profess, and that's something that if you in conversations they find ways to solve problems. And this is just a if it's if putting these data centers in communities that where it's going to cause more harm. They just need to find another. They have to find a way to solve that problem of getting the information that they need and the data that they need while not harming our neighbors.
Well, speaking of harm, there is a lot of talk about the harm that AI is leading when it comes to hiring.
Yeah.
Real AI hiring bias. Stanford University's Human Centered Artificial Intelligence lab has been among the first to develop a large scale study of hiring algorithms in the wild, finding concerning patterns to how systems reject candidates. They followed almost 3.5 million people
Yeah.
who submitted for 4 million job applications. They submitted 4 million job applications to 1,700 job postings across 150 employers and 11 industry sectors. Each job application was assessed by an AI hiring tool built by a single third party vendor. And this paper, published by, again, Stanford University's Human Centered Artificial Intelligence Lab, their paper offers really a rare look inside the black box of algorithmic hiring, showing that these tools increase racial bias and they shut the same people out of jobs everywhere they apply. Uh, Look, Stanford, they've got receipts. AI hiring tools are producing racial bias and systemic rejection. Break it down simply for us. How does a supposedly neutral algorithm, how does that end up filtering out black and brown applicants before a human even looks?
Right. So one of the things about these algorithms, they improve themselves. So they basically they use the data that's coming in and they make improvements and make predictions about which groups of people, because that's what it's doing. It's grouping folks based on, so hopefully on skill sets, but it starts to group and analyze the applicants as they come in, and that data feeds the algorithm. It feeds the machine learning process there. And as they start to make this as the algorithm starts to make decisions around which folks fit best for certain jobs, it in theory it gets better and better at making selection. But in many cases, there it's going to be pulling in more than just skill set data. It's going to be pulling in data like zip code. It's going to be pulling in data and something, and this is not new to us, pulling in names. And that data is going, and that algorithm is going to start to make decisions, and it's going to start to group folks. And it's binary, whether you're a good candidate for the role or a bad candidate for the role. And as it goes, it continues to feed on itself. And the last thing I'll call out, one thing, as I was trying to understand this process here, I think of it as, a few years back, and from time to time, I'll attend a club, in a city, and when I'm with my friends, we may go bar hopping, and it's like having a bouncer from the same third party company working at each door. And if you've been excluded from the first bar, you're going to be excluded from the next three because they have built up a profile. And that's the way I kind of see it. And I mean, it's definitely something that's concerning. So I'm glad that this study is in place. So lots of
So,
learnings from it.
so Jamar, is it actually harder to hold a company accountable now that they can just say, well, the AI decided, compared to when a biased human recruiter made the same call?
I think initially, yes, because I think the answer is exactly what you said. You know, we didn't make the call. We allowed the data and the algorithm to make the call about who would be the best fit for this role. But I think that one thing that we have, you know, that we as folks that may be applying for these positions have going for us is that data tells a story and it keeps record. And it's just a matter of making sure that, you know, and a good company is going to make sure that if they're using a third party system to place candidates or to exclude candidates, that they're also using maybe a third party and maybe an internal party to audit those systems. And I think that's the good in that, is that in the past it may be, you know, one's word against another, and unless you had documented, you know, evidence, you were, you know, you had to come up with that in as far as for a court of law. But this right here is being tracked, and I think that as long as these companies are keeping this data and allowing these types of studies to happen, you have that information available. So the story can be told more than just by he say she say. There's data to back up what's been said.
So Germar, what should somebody that is job hunting right now, one of our leaders, learners, and listeners that's job hunting right now as we speak, what should they actually do differently, knowing that a bot might be the first person reading their resume?
I think this is a place where we use data to assist us, and we use technology to assist us. You should be running your resume through a platform that would review that resume to look for anything that would come through as bias. And then on the hiring side, these companies should be looking for ways to continue to improve the system so that it's pulling out anything that could be, you know, considered biased. Like as I said before, zip code, you know, name pronunciation. These things it should be two-part. It should be those applicants running their resumes through these systems and getting an analysis on how is this being seen from AI, and then also on the company side, continuing to do these audits and to continue to look for issues with bias inside of the third party system. Yeah.
Well, you know, I know something about names, right? Nii-Quartelai, you run that name through a system. Let me tell you something.
You and me both, Dr. Nee.
You know, I mean, it's so strange. Like, you know, I didn't even think about it until well after college. That, oh my goodness, I'm sure some people might be looking at they may not be looking at my resume because
Right.
of my untraditional name. But I digress. In our remaining minutes, what's that?
I'm just gonna say I'm gonna push back, and you said untraditional, and I'm gonna say it's traditional. It may be unfamiliar to new ears, and that's the way I would say it.
Oh, I like that. I'm going with what you said, what Germar said. I'm gonna stick with that. Thank you, brother. In our remaining minutes in this segment, Germar, I want to talk quickly about Governor Pritzker signing some landmark AI regulation that aims to mitigate risk. The Associated Press is reporting that Governor J.B. Pritzker, he signed the artificial intelligence legislation modeled after similar bills in California and New York, furthering a push for state-driven national framework in lieu of federal regulation. Germar, I've got to ask you, quick gut check. Is state by state, is this state by state patchwork, is it actually protecting people, or does it just let companies shop around for the weakest rules?
I'd say that it's actually it's a de facto creating a de facto national standard, because what my understanding is that about 40% of the AI market sits within these three states. So by making these laws, putting these laws into place and creating these strict regulations, it's effectively kind of driving the decisions around the market. So I mean, I think that this is a strong start. I think that it'll continue to spread. One other thing also, looking into that bill, one thing that I love about the bill out of Illinois is that they're actually putting in a annual audit. It's different from California and New York, where I think New York is mandating a one-time audit, whereas Illinois they're auditing the data. So it's something that you and I talk about quite a bit, making sure that there's a third party reviewing what's there, not just trusting the companies to do what they say they're going to do.
And I was just looking at it, and look, the details matter. Senate Bill 315, which is also known as the Artificial Intelligence Safety Measures Act, it increases transparency and accountability requirements for the largest AI models, those that generate more than $500 million in annual revenue and are trained using massive computing power. When I saw that, I said, well, what if a big company says, okay, we're just going to break ourselves up into smaller parts so that we don't hit that $500 million threshold in annual revenue?
That's a great point, and you know what? That's something that hopefully this is an iterative process where they look to see what companies are finding ways around the laws and making updates and adjustments in order to make sure that they're continuing to protect the citizens. Yeah.
You are listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. More with our data justice contributor, Germar Reed. When we come forward, you're listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. You are listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai Corte, and always delighted to be in conversation with Germar Reed. He is our resident data justice contributor. He's also the founder of District Analyst LLC. He's a data science and analytics guru, and we are delighted to have you here with us to help make it make sense. Welcome.
Thank you for having me again, Dr. Nee.
Thank you for being here. And so, look, the Associated Press is reporting that the U.S. Justice Department, they can't have the names. They can't have the names and the personal contact information for every person who worked during the 2020 election in Georgia's Fulton County. A judge ruled on that just today. The Justice Department, for people who are less familiar, in April, they served a grand jury subpoena seeking the names and personal contact information of county employees and volunteer poll workers. President Trump has long claimed without evidence that widespread voter fraud in Georgia's most populous county, a Democratic stronghold, cost him victory in the state in 2020. Now, here we are in 2026 with this ruling. Germar, just sticking with the data for a second, because this is a data story too. A judge just blocked the Department of Justice from getting the names and personal contact information of every person who worked the 2020 election in Fulton County. As a data guy, what would the Justice Department want a list like that for at all? And what's the actual use case for that information?
Yeah, I mean, there are a number of things that they could use that data for. I mean, if we were to go with that they're only looking to protect the voting box. If we were to believe that, and I think that's probably their stated purpose. I mean, that might be a good thing. But the thing that I think about is, doxing folks that that have decided to fulfill their civic duty and to work at these polling stations. And I think about this every time when I go to vote. These are people that are taking from their day. They believe in the system that we have in place so much that they're willing to volunteer their hours, the hours that they have, in order to make sure that our process runs and it runs efficiently. And doing this would do nothing but scare people away. It would reduce the number of folks that are willing to volunteer their time to help at polling centers. And I think the judge got it right on this one. And if my understanding is that this judge is a Trump appointee. I'll double check that after this, but my understanding is he's a Trump appointee, and I think he got it right. You cannot fool with the voting system in a way that it pushes people away from volunteering and helping to make sure that we run an efficient process. And again, and the last thing I'll say is that in order for data science and analytics to be used in a way that pushes us forward, we need trust. And this right here, this would erode the trust that people have in making their information available, for civic duty like this. So
So Jamar, just to put a finer point on this, if
Yeah.
this judge had ruled differently, would a fight like this make you think twice before signing up to work the polls the next election cycle? Should it make anybody think twice about working the polls if, in fact, their personal identifiable information was surrendered to the U.S. Department of Justice?
Absolutely. It would absolutely give me pause. I mean, I don't know about you, but those are the problems I don't need in my life with
I'm
the
with you. I'm with you.
so, and and you know what? I don't have time and energy and money to spend defending and protecting my information after it's been released by my government in order to harm me and my family on top of that. So it's yeah, so I mean, yeah, I think had he made another decision, I think we would see a drop in the and maybe that would work to his benefit. Maybe that would work to someone's benefit in the future, because it would cause people to have to wait longer in line, especially in this county, taking away the voting rights of citizens. It would cause folks to have to wait longer and for us to get the information back later, and it would disrupt the process. So and maybe that's the point.
Yeah, maybe it is the point, and scary stuff because look,
Yeah, yeah,
folks who volunteer at the polls, they're part of the lifeblood of how our elections run. And I could not imagine, if suddenly in Georgia and other states across the country, election workers, volunteer workers,
right,
uh, you know, Americans doing their civic duty, if suddenly they thought twice about
right.
volunteering for fear that they might catch a case.
Yeah,
Um, now, speaking of catching a case, a whole lot of folks have a case of things costing too dang much out there. The Guardian is reporting that half of Americans are struggling to afford groceries and
mhm,
gas. It's according to a new exclusive poll. 95%. 95% of Americans believe the U.S. is suffering an affordability crisis as many report trouble with the rising cost of groceries and gas. The survey conducted by Harris Poll, it painted a pretty bleak picture of how people feel about the U.S. economy amid this war in Iran and ahead of the key midterm elections in the fall. Despite stable employment and record high stock markets, more Americans, in which case I say, well, stable employment for whom? Because we know black employment is high, but
that's
I
right.
digress. We'll come back to the Guardian on that. But more Americans believe that the overall economy is getting worse. 57% believe the economy is getting worse. That's 57% compared to 46% in February when the poll was last conducted. You might remember that was before the war in the Middle East sent gas prices soaring. Um, I've got to ask you, Jamar, does the data side of you see this as a blip or something more structural that we should be watching heading into the fall?
Yeah, so I am a nerd of data, and I love to follow the trends and to look at, if we're looking at an upward trend or a downward trend, and what we're looking at with regard to cost, it's definitely an upward trend. It's not 1 month in the year that we're seeing this spike. We're seeing it trending up, and again with the gas prices. And I think about November, and I think about grading system. And every couple of years, we as citizens and voters get the opportunity to give our elected officials their grade, and to either allow them to continue to hold on to their job or to dismiss them. And I think that this, as we lead into this year, into November, this will be our opportunity to grade based on the data that's available to us. So yeah.
I mean, it's also worth noting that this affordability crisis that it crosses party lines. That
Yeah.
about half of all Democrats, Republicans, and Independents they say that they are having trouble affording everyday necessities again, like gas and groceries. 2/3 of Americans, including 49% of Republicans, they said they have little faith that the federal government will improve cost of living. That this crisis that everybody is facing. Talk to us about uh, what kind of political headwinds particularly the ones that can be sustained through November, what kind of political headwinds are we looking at? Being that, this is one issue where Democrats, Republicans, and independents are all saying we got a crisis here.
Right. This is one thing that when doing experimentation using data and research data, we look at segments and I'm sure that this data will be broken down beyond just the three groups that you just mentioned, the two political groups and the independents. But we look at segments and when we see multiple segments going in the same direction, feeling and beyond just party affiliation, beyond just regional location, age, race, when we see that there's consistency across each of these segments, I think that this if I was in office, I would see this as a problem because and number one, I'm not even able to hold on to the group that I belong to. So I think those that are in office today and have been and came into office, the political speeches were all about the economy and about what they would do for the economy. I think this is going to be a reckoning day, and I think we'll see in November. Yeah.
And to what degree do you see rural Americans as a wild card? I mean, I think maybe in previous election cycles they've been more of a wild card, but it doesn't look too wild to me this go round. A strong base for Republicans, rural Americans, that is, they are feeling more pessimistic, not less, more pessimistic. 64% say the economy is getting worse, compared with 46% who said the same in February. And so, it looks like the making of a blue wave, does it not?
It does to me. I mean, and I think about our our neighbors that are in rural America. They're dealing with the same issues that we are. They have the same expenses. In some cases, they may be dealing with higher expenses. The fact that there may be less stores in order to kind of move around and select for cheaper items or better cost items. But if we're not, if the party that's in office today is not holding on to that group, I definitely see that this could be a blue wave. But I'm gonna caution and say that I always think about the fact that a blue wave can turn into a red wave if we can't figure out how to do it on the other side of how to fix and correct what's being done right now.
To the point that you just made, again, as I was diving into this article published by The Guardian, I was really sort of zeroing in on the rural American piece. And
Yeah.
according to this article, rural Americans were also the most likely to say that good job opportunities have disappeared over the past year and that tariffs have negatively affected American manufacturing jobs. And so it seems to me that there's an opportunity here for Democrats and independents to make some inroads when it comes to the question around good jobs, bringing good jobs, protecting jobs, but also bringing good jobs into the community. It seems that between tariffs and this AI revolution, that there are everyday Americans that are seeing jobs, good jobs, disappear pretty rapidly. And so it's not enough to say that, if you vote for Democrats, we are going to make sure that people get good jobs with living wages. Well, what jobs? Right. And how are you going to do that? And it seems to me that there's a captive audience out there for Democrats and independents to lean into with a solution. I'm not sure if we're hearing enough of the solutions. We know there's an affordability crisis. We know that unemployment is getting higher and higher, particularly for the Black and brown unemployed people in this country, right? But we're not hearing enough about solutions.
Yeah. Now, I love that you brought it to solutions, and I think that's what we send folks to Congress and local, not only federal but state and local office to solve complex, hard problems, and that's what they're there for. And I think that one thing that we learned, in the past election, in the past elections, is that you you can't just talk about what the other party has done wrong. You have to come to the table and say, hey, we're going in the wrong direction, and I think that we need to go in this direction, and here's why, and this is what it solves. And I think about the fact that you talked about the data centers. Those data centers, and the way when they pitch the data centers, they talk about all the jobs that they will create. But what folks have become very smart about and asking the right question, and I've seen this in a couple of online discussions, which of those jobs will stay around after the data center is built, which will go away, and will we be better for it on the other end? And I think and I hope that the American people are asking better questions and pushing those that we put in office to answer those complex questions, and like you said, provide solutions. So.
Well, I'm so glad that we have you here to help us illuminate these complex questions and shine a light on all of this. Germar Reed, data science and analytics guru, our resident data justice contributor here on A More Perfect Union, founder of District Analyst LLC. Many thanks to you for riding with us today. Where can people go to tap into your work?
Yeah, you can find me online, www.districtanalyst.com. I'm on Instagram under the same name, and also all the social media platforms under the same name.
When we come forward, it's time for the quiet part out loud. I'll give you a little spoiler alert. Gen Z has a problem. We'll tell you all about it when we come forward. You're listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. Thank you, Germar.